Alright, so our debate topic is unilateral military action. Our debate question is unilateral military force by the United States justified to prevent regimes from subjugating peaceful nations? Wars have been happening in our world for thousands of years, but is war really the answer to all situations? The United States of America has taken unilateral military action many times. For example, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Unilateral is the term for an action or decision taken by one person, group, or country in a situation without the other side's approval. Unilateral military force by the United States is not justified to prevent regimes from subjugating peaceful nations because it causes a numerous amount of deaths, aggression opens doors to mental health issues, and it has a negative influence on the younger generation of kids. Unilateral military force is not good for humanity because of the number of deaths which are caused by it. Many people die in unilateral due to war, and that is very devastating, not only for the people who die, but also for the people who are losing their loved ones in war. Prior wars and civil conflict in the United States have made Afghan society extremely vulnerable to reverberating effects of the U.S. post-9/11 war. Those war effects include elevated rates of disease due to lack of clean drinking water, malnutrition, and reduced access to health care. Nearly every factor associated with premature death, poverty, malnutrition, poor sanitation, lack of access to health care, environmental degradation, and is exacerbated by the current war. All of these effects are happening to living people in this world, and they're just regular people. Some of them are not even involved in the war. It is not humane. Every person should have access to clean drinking water, nutritious food, and health care. War should never be the reason that these human rights get denied to humans for something that is not even their fault. About 243,000 people have been killed in the Afghanistan/Pakistan war since 2001. More than 70,000 of those killed have been civilians. The amount of people dying through war is just heartbreaking. They're all people who have families, people who love them, people who have lives, dreams, but they don't get to live their full potential because of war. When they pass, they are not only losing something, their death kills loved ones on the inside for the rest of their lives. The loss of someone you love is a pain that never goes away, and it will forever be a hole in your heart, and you can never replace that with any amount of money that the war may try to give you or anything, which it doesn't, first of all. No amount of money, fame, or anything else can replace that hole in your heart. If we don't use unilateral military force, we could save so many lives and so many people's hearts from breaking. The aggression from unilateral military force can lead to many internal conflicts like mental health issues. A traumatic event is a shocking, scary, or dangerous experience that affects you emotionally. During war, people can be exposed to many different traumatic events that raises the chances of developing mental health problems, like post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, and depression. The poor life outcomes affect adults. People who are in the military join to serve their country for the goodness of their heart. So why are we paying them back with mental health disorders? They should have a life full of happiness, but sadly they get sadness, and so do their family members. These mental health issues can affect a person so deeply that it can be hard to live another day. There are already a lot of deaths that happen because of physical injuries or disease due to war, but deaths can also be caused by people not being able to live with the trauma from the wars. Civilians who are not directly involved in the war effort are also frequently confronted with war-related stressors. Some typical civilian stressors include life threat, being bombed, shot at, threatened, or displaced, being confined to one's home, suffering from financial hardships, and having restricted access to resources such as food, water, and other supplies. Particularly horrific stressors experienced by some civilians during war include torture, beatings, rape, forced labor, witnessing sexual abuse or violence toward a family member, and mock execution. Civilians are normal people who have done nothing wrong, but they are living a punishment that most people wouldn't even want for their worst enemy. They are constantly having to fear losing their homes, family, and human resources. Some civilians have also experienced punishments that even you would not give a person who has committed a crime and is in jail or is a criminal. No one should have to live like this. Every human should be able to feel mentally and physically safe wherever they are. but these aggressive wars are taking this human right away from people. Unilateral military force has a bad influence on kids and sets a bad example. In some violent armed conflicts, children may be separated from their families, communities by armed groups. These child soldiers can witness or participate in killings, experience, or traumatic events. In addition to the psychological trauma and physical injuries, many former soldiers face rejection from family and community after the war. As a child, our life is supposed to be full of happiness and hope. Sadly, it's not that way for everyone else. These children in war zones have to experience events that some adults might not even be able to handle. Since they are so young, the trauma and stress will last all their life and affect their adulthood. They will never know how to live without the psychological trauma, and it can also be passed down to their future children. An estimated 15,000 to 22,000 boys and girls of all ages were subject to sexual violence, forced to use alcohol and drugs, hard physical labor, and acts of violence until the war ended. The amount of emotional damage these events can do to a person is immense. It hurts the people who are the parents of the child, because what you want as a parent is you want to see your child happy and safe and loved. But sadly, these wars don't let that dream come true for those parents. For a parent, their child's safety and happiness is their biggest wish. To see their child instead go through horrific events like sexual abuse will break a parent's heart into a million pieces. If the parent is broken themselves, then they won't be able to help their child, and then the problem doesn't get solved. War also sets a bad example for kids because it teaches them that fighting is the right way. Fighting is never the right way. There are other ways to solve conflicts, like talking it through or just figuring out other ways to help yourself without the violence and the abuse. This will cause the future generation of kids to become more aggressive and not know how to solve their issues in a mature and calm manner. As humans, our number one priority should always be the safety of other humans and making sure that our society is a safe place. Not only should we keep our society's physical health good, but we also need to keep our mental health safe and good. It is important to set a good example for kids because they are our future. They need to be brought up in a healthy and safe environment. There are better ways to solve conflict than war. We should solve conflicts by working together and with love. Here is a painting as a visual example of what war is like. Black is for all the darkness that war brings and all the pain that it brings. Red is the bloodshed that happens and all the lives lost. Blues are the specks of tears of loved ones losing people that they love. It's all messy because the war creates messes. It creates dysfunction. It creates problems. It creates negativity. Handprints are the people screaming for help and to escape this horrible thing that is war. A quote on there is, "War does not determine who is right, only who is left." War doesn't always just solve conflicts. It only kills people most of the time, and it just determines, oh, who is left, they are right. That doesn't determine who is actually right. If we don't end the war will end us. If we keep on continuing with war, more and more human beings will lose their lives and our population will decrease, and that is never a good thing. Well, it can be, but it's never good to be losing people and them dying. The tragedy of war is that it uses man's best to do man's worst. What that means is that a person in war will always try to save themselves, of course, and fight for their country. They will do their best to do their best, but their best is going to be killing people, which is man's worst. I think one of the worst things that a person can do is take the life of another human being or cause them pain. War is the greatest plague that can afflict humanity. It destroys religion, it destroys families, and it destroys states. Thank you.